Hello YouTube, Dave here again, back with another pickups video. Sorry I didn't have a video out on Monday, but just honestly been feeling a bit under the weather again. It's just sort of been like one thing after the other, which has been really frustrating so far this winter, but starting to feel a little bit better. So I thought I would just do like a quick and easy pickups video. I picked up a few things, nothing too major or earth-shattering, but still I thought it would make for sort of a fun video. So let's just sort of go ahead and just get right into it, I guess. So the first thing that I want to show here isn't actually a recent pickup, but it's something that I had gotten back for Christmas and forgot to bring home with me, so I only got it back in my possession recently, and that is the the PowerA wired controller Breath of the Wild version for the Nintendo Switch. I actually plan on doing a sort of a review on the Nintendo Switch, as well as a review on some of the different controller styles that you can play with it. And, not that I do a lot of video game stuff, but I still thought it'd be kind of fun to do these types of videos. So I'm not going to go into detail here right now, like today with this particular one, but still a really cool packaging. So this is, the reason that I originally got this was the wireless Pro Controller, which we ended up getting later, was like the retail price here in Canada was like $90 for it, which like just controllers and wireless controllers in general here in Canada are expensive, but this one was like $30 or $35, I think. So you could basically get a couple of them for less than a couple of these ones for less than the price of a wireless. So this has like a 10-foot cord. The cord's actually not currently in the box. I did take it out to use this controller a little bit. And trying to get it back in, trying to get the cord back in the way that they had it packed was beyond my capabilities. But it's a really cool controller. It does not have like the rumble support or the gyroscopic controls or the NFC for amiibos, but honestly, I don't think that necessarily matters because there are other options, including like the Joy-Cons that come with the system for a lot of that stuff. I still want to try this with Breath of the Wild, just to see what happens when I enter a shrine that has one of the apparatus things that uses the gyroscope controls. So it'll be interesting to see how it handles that, if you just get to use the thumbsticks, for example. But I actually really like this controller, and I really like the packaging. I did see a video of someone unboxing a bunch of these, and there was a typo like on his boxes, and it has like the Super Mario edition, but this does actually have the Zelda Breath of the Wild edition on here. But the one thing I think is really cool, it's only missing one of the colors, but this reminds me so much of like the Nintendo 64 packaging, because you've got, you got the front here, but then you have like blue on this side, you have green on this side. Now obviously the colors were in a different orientation, and then you have like the red on the top and bottom and back. But I just think it's kind of cool to have like these different colors, and it just reminds me of the Nintendo 64, which is one of my favorite systems, and something I think is definitely underrated. So it's just kind of cool to see that, and I'll do a more comprehensive video on this controller in the upcoming weeks. But just pick that up. Another thing that I have here, which is sort of related to going all the way back to a Christmas, and this was like Christmas all the way back in like 2003. But I recently picked up a VHS copy of the Dungeons and Dragons movie. It's in kind of rough shape, but for something that's like 17 years old now, you kind of expect that. This was also used to be a rental because it has like the PG sticker on it there, and I think, yeah. And we got like the Blockbuster, please. Oh, here's the other thing. It says, please remember to rewind. And it's not rewound. So I thought that was kind of, kind of funny. But the reason that I got this, I don't even have a VCR anymore, but way back in, like, I think it was Christmas 2003. Or maybe, no, actually, you know what? This came out in 2001, so maybe this is back in like Christmas 2002. 2001, 2002. But when I first started playing Dungeons & Dragons, which was only a couple years prior to this, not a lot of my family was a big fan of that. A lot of them sort of remembered like the satanic panic of the 1980s, and they didn't really know anything about the actual game itself beyond how it was presented. So got a little bit of pushback on me wanting to, get into Dungeons and Dragons back then. But I had an aunt who actually got me this movie as a Christmas present, and it was the first D&D related present that I ever got from a family member that I didn't specifically ask for, and it meant a lot to me at the time. And I've watched this movie a few times. I'll be honest, it's not great. It is not great by any stretch of the imaginations, but it's kind of a nostalgic thing. And this was at like Value Village, which is like a Canadian sort of thrift store kind of thing, similar to like the Salvation Army. They had this for 99 cents. So for 99 cents, to have this just as like a nostalgia piece, I thought was totally worth it. And again, just the beautiful irony of the, please remember to rewind on a VHS that is not rewound, I thought was just kind of amusing. So anyway, so there you go. Just a little bit of my my youth. I'm not going to say childhood, but my youth. Alright, up next we have a couple of Starfinder related products. The first one that I'm going to show here is the first chapter of the new Dawn of Flame adventure path. So this is Firestarters. This is this part 1 of 6 actually, so this is going to be another 6-part adventure path. And so something that I actually plan on doing, because Paizo sent me a copy of Incident at Absalom Station. And I decided to wait until this came out, but because I want to try to make it, a video that's not going to be completely obsolete or outdated within, a few weeks. So what I plan on doing is actually I'm going to start working on it over the course of the next few days, is do a series of like overviews and reviews for each of the opening chapters for the 4 adventure paths that are now currently available. And just like sort of do like a summary of them, which will have some spoilers, and just sort of talk about some of their strengths and weaknesses, and just sort of compare opening chapters for these adventure paths before I do a separate series, which is going to be all about the completed adventure paths. And I guess I shouldn't say a series for the first chapters here, because I'm actually going to just combine it all into one. I guess it's going to be a longer video, but I'll combine it into one. And like I said, I'll be starting on that, and that's something that should be out for next week. So really looking forward to that, and this is an interesting adventure, and I'll save my opinions for it for that video, or I will talk about the other ones as well. So just cool to have that. And then also, I was able to pick up a copy of the Dead Sons pawn collection. So the pawns are like the cardboard stand-up figures that you can use for miniature combat, or combat using like a grid of miniatures. So this includes a lot of the creatures, unique creatures, as well as like the NPCs and starships and everything from the Dead Sons adventure path. And I'm going to be honest, actually, this upcoming weekend I'm actually going to be running a Starfinder game, and I was originally going to be running the what's called the Against the Aeon Throne adventure path, which was the one that came out after Dead Sons, the 3-part one. And I did a lot of work to sort of set it up, and I shouldn't say a lot of work, but I did some work to set it up. I ran one session of it, but basically everyone wanted to, they either did change their character between the setup adventures and the beginning of the campaign I was going to run, or they played the one adventure and they want to make something new for a character. So basically what I'm going to do is sort of just reboot the whole thing and just scrap the plans to run that, because I actually do want to run the Dead Sons path, and getting this pawn set was just sort of the thing that sort of cemented that finally in my mind. But it was something that I was actually planning on doing, I think, even before I got this. So but this is, again, really, really cool, and it's nice to have, again, some of like the unique creatures, like NPCs, villains that they may come up against. So I think that's just really, really awesome. So glad to have that. And it was the only pawn set that I was actually missing at the time. So I went into Giant Robot, my local game store, and actually when I went to go pick this up, I had this set aside for me because they took pictures, and they forgot to take a picture of this. So when they got their new stock in. So when I was there to pick this up, I saw the pawn set sitting on the shelf, and I didn't have enough money for both. So I just said, listen, can you, set this aside for me? I'll pick it up next week. And, they did, and here we are. So again, really, really cool to have those. And basically, the only thing I'm missing now is the Starships double-sided battle mat. And at that point, I'll be completely up to date on everything Starfinder, which is a system that I really, really, really like. All right, and then the last thing that we have is in this plastic bag, and it's pretty see-through, so I guess you probably could already tell what it is. And this is sort of an interesting pickup, and I know there's probably going to be some people questioning why. But what I ended up picking up just today, actually, I just got home from getting this, is the Sony PlayStation Classic. So I know that there's a lot of hate for this system, and honestly, a lot of it is rightfully deserved. Like Sony. They rushed this out. They didn't really necessarily pick the greatest selection of games. There were questionable choices when it came to having PAL formatted games take up almost half of the available selection. But it's one of those things that just didn't sell well. And so as you can see here, the Canadian price was $130, $129.99. We don't have pennies in Canada anymore, so that would round up anyway. So there you go, $130 was the original retail price on this when it launched back in December. And it did not sell for $130. The local EB Games that I go to in the Micmac Mall here in Dartmouth, as well as the Walmart in Dartmouth Crossing, had the same number of these units on display for the last 4 months, 3-4 months. Ever since it came out. The one in Dartmouth Crossing, the Walmart, they had 20 or 21 of these in their display case since December, and they just weren't selling. A while back, Sony reduced the price, the MSRP on this, from the retail price of the original one, so the $130 Canadian, down to $80, which I think $80 was closer to, I think in the States it was $100, like $99 at that point in time, like when it first came out. So here in Canada it got reduced from $130 down to $80, and that was, not necessarily a bad price, but it still wasn't worth it. And, I don't have an attachment to the Sony PlayStation at all. I don't have, nostalgic memories of the games on here. But the thing that made me want to finally pick this up is that they reduced the price all the way down to $49.99. And I don't think it's really going to get any lower than that. And that's an $80 discount from the original price. So from $130 down to $50, I figure at this point it's kind of worth picking up. So, like I said, I don't have any nostalgic ties to the Sony PlayStation. It's not a system that I was ever particularly fond of. So why did I get it? In addition to just the fact that it got really heavily discounted, and actually because of that discount down to $40 or $50, the ones that were in Walmart, they had actually sold about a dozen of them. They only had they had about a little over half, or a little less than half of what they had in their display case. So they were actually starting to move these. But the biggest reason was that I thought about getting this is, for that price is not too bad. But I was planning on getting Final Fantasy VII for the Nintendo Switch anyway. And I know that I had said that I feel like Final Fantasy VII is kind of overrated. And I think overrated might be was probably the wrong phrase. But I think it's a game that's kind of overhyped to mythic proportions, and I don't think, based on the amount of blind praise that gets heaped on it, the amount of people that were clamoring for an HD remake, all the people saying that this is the greatest thing to ever happen to mankind, I don't think it's ever going to be able to live up to that in my mind. So I'm almost sure that it'll probably be disappointing based off of listening to all that hype. But to get the Final Fantasy game on the Switch, like Final Fantasy IX, I assume it's probably going to be a similar price point. It was $28 to get Final Fantasy IX. So I figured that Final Fantasy VII will probably be the same price, which I was more than willing to pay. So that's going to come to around $30 once you get into taxes and stuff like that. And for the people who didn't believe that we had a 15% tax rate here in Nova Scotia, 15% harmonized sale tax. So there you go. We combine our provincial and our federal into one. Anyway, so I was going to get this anyway for around $30. So for an extra $20, and actually to get Final Fantasy on the Switch, because I don't think it's going to be a physical copy, I think it's just going to be download only, I would actually have to have bought $40 worth of cards, like gift cards, because like where I live, I know there's like $10 ones that they have, but I've never seen them. Like $20 seems to be the minimum one that most stores carry around here, so I would have to have spent $40 anyway. So, you know, again, knowing that I was going to be spending that much money, there's at least enough other games on here to make up for the rest of it, plus the fact that I'm getting 2 USB controllers on top of it, which will hopefully work with, you know, plugging them into a laptop or PC for gaming that way. For certain things. So, you know, for that money, you know, Final Fantasy was one that I definitely, you know, was going to be getting. But it would be kind of cool. I've never played, you know, any of these games, actually. So, you know, for me, it's worth it to also get the chance to play Metal Gear Solid, to play Oddworld Abe's Odyssey, which was a game that I always thought was kind of cool. I remember seeing, like, magazine advertisements for it back in the 90s. Resident Evil Director's Cut, which is interesting because they're going to be bringing out some HD versions of Resident Evil on the Switch. I have the GameCube remake, and now I've got the Director's Cut as well, so there you go. I also, you know, would probably get some use out of Revelations Persona, which I believe is an RPG, and Wild Arms, which I know is an RPG, and I'm almost positive that my fiance and I are going to get some enjoyment out of Super Puzzle Fighter 2. We both played a lot of like Dr. Mario on the NES Classic. And I'm sure she would love to play a game like this. And I actually have a lot of fond memories playing Puzzle Combat from Mortal Kombat Deception. A buddy and I, we would just play it to death, and it was based off of this. So, you know, so we got, you know, Final Fantasy, plus we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 other games that I know for sure I'm going to enjoy. Intelligent Cube seems like an interesting game as well. And my fiance also has, at her parents' house, they have physical copies of Tomb Raiders, I think 1 and 2 for the PlayStation, as well as a couple of the Spyro games for the PlayStation and one of the Crash Bandicoot games. I think it might be Crash Team Racing, I'm not sure. But either way, considering that the fact that they own those physical copies, I wouldn't be opposed to having those added to this as like archival backups or, you know, what have you. So anyway, for like an $80 discount, in my opinion, it is totally worth getting. And I actually also plan on doing a review for this as well. And I'm going to try to take a slightly more balanced approach than a lot of the other reviews that I see, which are done by people who had the original PlayStation and had like the nostalgia for it, which I understand. I felt the same way about the NES and the Super NES classics. But I don't have those nostalgic feelings for the Sony PlayStation. I don't have sort of like those nostalgic memories of playing like the original PlayStation games as a youth, like when I was 13. I was in my teens when the PlayStation did come out, but I don't have like that sort of attachment to it. So I can review this as someone who doesn't have these memories of the original PlayStation, or very many of them, in his head. And I can also do the review as someone who did not spend the full retail price, but saved a significant amount of money to get this. So I'll be doing a review for that as well. So I just think, I don't do a lot of video game stuff on the channel, but I do love video games. I play, you know, video games quite a bit, so I thought I would expand into that because it's something that I'm going to have fun talking about. Anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time. Take care.